Oh, g'day, mate. 40 here. So I often lapse into this really pompous way of talking. Not thrilled about this, but I think it's like a distancing device where I try to put like distance between myself and whoever I'm talking to. Like I'm up here on Mount Sinai talking down to the peons. I think it's an example of getting out of touch with reality because I have not lived a life that entitles me to become pompous in my public pronouncements. I remember there was this girl I was seeing in something like 1992, and I was asking her to tell me like what similarities she saw between my father and I, and she said, "Well, he's not as pompous." Ouch, ouch. So I think I inherited some of my father's preaching characteristics, but I don't have his level of accomplishment. So I don't have his 2 PhDs and all his other accomplishments. And I also don't have his level of righteousness and rectitude and being, an upstanding husband and father and preacher and teacher and professor and all that. So certain forms of rhetoric, they can work for someone who's got, a long lengthy list of accomplishments, but for a bloke whose main accomplishment in life is blogging since July of 1997, I don't get to be pompous. So it's a lot easier for me to say, hey, this is what's wrong with you, or this is what's wrong with people, rather than it's much more exposing, it's much more intimate to say, okay, this is where I went wrong, this is where I screwed up. For example, being broke. Like being broke, if you're above average in intelligence, that usually indicates there's something wrong with you. You're not stepping up to adult levels of responsibility. Because if you're broke, other people are going to have to pick up the slack. So it's a useful attack vector that Red Bar uses on people. And if you're going to make a personal attack, right, attacking someone for being broke makes as much sense, probably more sense than most other forms of personal attack. Right? It makes more sense than attacking someone for the sound of their voice or for their looks, over which they probably have no ability to change. So I'm not a big fan of making personal attacks. I don't think I make many personal attacks, but when I'm the recipient of personal attacks, this is just someone saying what dozens of people are thinking. So I might as well learn from it instead of getting all up in arms like, oh, you made a personal attack, bro. Yeah, I think generally speaking, a credit score is probably the single best objective number for how reliable and upstanding somebody is. Like if you're broke, there's something wrong. If you've got above average intelligence, it means you haven't stepped up to adult level responsibility. You haven't made prudent plans. You don't get along with other people. You haven't done the things that you need to do to pay your way in life and to meet your responsibilities. So Red Bar is absolutely vicious, but seems very much rooted in reality. So it would not be any fun to be a recipient of his criticisms, but they're usually pretty accurate. They're usually pretty rooted in reality. And so it may not be any fun to hear this, but he's simply saying what hundreds of people are probably thinking about you. There was this one writer I knew, Greg Kreitzer, who was not a big fan of mine. He found me, incredibly inappropriate and rude. But his life was profoundly changed one day when he was getting out of his car, and some guy driving by said, yelled out, "Get out of the way, fatso." And that led Greg Kreitzer to embark on dramatic weight loss. He lost something like 100 pounds and wrote a well-received book about fat.